Travis Haig works as a full-time pest controller, but by night he transforms into a time-lapse film extraordinaire.
Initially just a hobby to pass time in his remote town of Roxby Downs, now his videos have filmmakers knocking at his door for advice. But capturing the perfect starscape can come at a cost. Travis often sleeps by his camera outside for up to 8 hours at a time. That is commitment, and the very committed Travis Haig joins us now live from Adelaide. Great to have you on the show, Travis. Your day job is as a pest exterminator, so what exactly made you take up filmmaking?
Yeah, I've always loved filmmaking. I did actually do a stint with the BBC many years ago with some friends, the David Attenborough series, and working with the directors and producers there, wonderful bunch, I was pretty hooked on it. And moving to a remote area, which was one of the reasons to do it, was to capture the images from the outback. And yeah, it just took off and it just keeps developing.
Oh, they're beautiful pictures, mate. And you've got to admit, geez, I tell you, the camera technology has come so fast, so quickly. For those of us who don't know, explain to us what exactly time-lapse is.
Time-lapse has been around for a long time, but it's basically speeding up time or speeding up images. My technique, I use basically take a picture and we play each individual photo back 25 times a second, and it creates and speeds up to produce those images.
You've taught yourself this talent through trial and error, and now you have a professional filmmakers actually asking you for the advice. How does that feel? It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's right. I've sat around and had coffee with professionals before, and there's so many different types of time lapse. There's day to night. There's evening time lapses. There's different time lapses through the day, and we're all of us out there having a crack at time lapses. We're all trying different things, and yeah, people ask me, like, how did you do that? And yeah, I generally like to give my advice out, but sometimes I like to keep things to a secret.
Oh, absolutely, mate.
A few secrets,
especially when you're one of the best. You camp out by your camera in ghost towns for this is a hobby. What other challenges do you come by?
Yeah, it is a challenge. There's so many things that can go wrong when you do a time lapse, especially a night one. It doesn't necessarily, it's not something you go out and take 5 minutes doing. It can take all night, and you do need to stay by your equipment. I generally thrive on my own, but I do love to take my friends with me. And look, I've even actually, been on dates when doing time lapse. But I do thrive on my own, and too many things can go wrong. You've got to be really switched on, or else something goes wrong and you've wasted 8-10 hours.
Yeah, you've got to keep everyone away from the tripod, don't you?
Yeah, and I guess at least for you, you're not that scared of snakes and spiders, being a pest exterminator, so when you're camping out, you don't actually have to be afraid of anything. Now, can I just ask, would you ever quit your day job, because you are a pest exterminator by day, and go into this full time?
Yeah, there is those options. We're very happy doing what we're doing in Roxby Downs. It's a beautiful place. I get to do my time lapse in Roxby. There's some beautiful ghost towns and Lake Eyre and the Flinders Ranges. I wouldn't. I don't necessarily have to change things. I could do it full time, that's for sure. But I have the best of both worlds where I live. I'm a very, very lucky person.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, Roxby Downs. Travis, thanks so much for your time today, mate. Have a great weekend.
Good, thank you.
Well, we're kicking off a new series today called Morning Show and Tell.
Oh, that's good.
I like it. Where we unearth some of Australia's most fascinating and most unusual collections.
Yeah, but be prepared. You might want your earplugs for this particular one, because we sent 7 News reporter Sophie Hull to see a man about a trumpet. Well, actually, about 100 trumpets. Have a look.
From the moment John Foster's lips met with brass, it was love at first blast.
I fell in love with it straight away. I think I was probably about 10.
For a little kid, there's a lot to love about something you're allowed to have at school that can make an almighty noise.
Its main function is to be a signalling instrument, if we look at the bare bones of it. I try not to weaponise it too much, only when absolutely required, but...
Only for people who really deserve it?
Absolutely.
From a schoolboy's hobby to a grown man's obsession, Finding out all there is to know about trumpets has been John's life's work.
Welcome back to the Morning Show Games. We are well and truly on the road to Rio. Just 16 days until the Olympics.
Yes, we are.
Kick off.
We are on our way to Rio. Competing against the world's best is every athlete's dream, requiring passion and determination and years and years and years of training. So, what does it take to become a gold medal contender? We sat down. Well, we didn't sit down. We bounced
around
banshees with two Aussie brothers who are somersaulting their way to the very top of the leaderboard. Take a look. Ty and Sean, some of the best in the biz. Come on over, guys.
Wow.
Hey, guys.
Congratulations, Sean. You are the reserve for Rio. So that means you're pretty good.
Yeah, it means at the moment it's a recognition as myself as one of the top 2 trampolinists in the country. And I've got a job to do to stay comp ready up until the games and be there as support for our team.
Is it as simple as starting like all of us in the backyard with a little rusty old trampoline?
Actually, so the first time I myself ever saw a trampoline was at the 2000 Olympic Games when we had a silver medalist from Jai Wallace.
Right.
After that, we found a local trampoline club and went from there.
Oh, so actually, from the Olympics, it drove you. That's a great story.
So when we hear the word inspire and Olympics, it is so true. And your brothers, of course, as well. So very competitive as well, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it adds another dynamic, so it's always fun.
You need to explain some of the rules to us, because this is a sport with a lot of rules.
So basically, you do 2 routines. There's 10 skills in a routine. Your first routine's based largely on execution and how high you can go. Your second routine's based on execution, how high you can go, and how difficult your routine is.
One of the hardest skills that I do, I'm the only person in the world that competes this skill. It's a triple back somersault in the pike position. It's a bit of a rare triple, so I'm pretty proud of that one. But guys are doing anywhere of up to 5 to 6 triple somersaults in a routine.
Get serious. Can you put a bit of, use your own body. And roll like you're on fire.
So the first skill we're going to do is a seat drop, where you jump down onto your bottom and back up to your feet.
Easy peasy. Okay. And
back up. Yeah, big present.
Now, if you looked at the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald today, massive headline, Big Tobacco seeks data on children. That's right, a major tobacco company is fighting to obtain Australian school survey results in an attempt to target its packaging, presumably, towards teenagers. British-American company Big Tobacco is believed to be using the data to fight plain packaging laws here in Australia. And there are also concerns alcohol companies will be using the results as well. It's not the first time that the company has used confidential data on Australian attitudes to smoking to market their products. Professor Mike Daub from Curtin University and President of the Australian Council on Smoking and Health is on the line, and he joins me now. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Jamie.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. What was your reaction when you saw this news?
Look, I was appalled. You're never, I guess, surprised by the depths to which tobacco companies will stoop. This is an industry globally whose products kill about 6 million people each year. British American Tobacco is one of the world's biggest tobacco companies. And there are a few things that are shocking about this. The first is that a tobacco company is seeking any information about kids' tobacco and indeed alcohol habits and attitudes. The second is that they are pressuring a cancer council, a charity, which of course has to spend time and money fighting them off to get this information. And third is that they're using freedom of information legislation for this. And of course, FOI legislation, which is terrific, it was introduced so that people like you and me could find out what governments are doing about us as individuals.
I think the term is keep the bastards honest, Mike.
That's right. But it wasn't intended so that a global tobacco company based in London could get information about tobacco and apparently alcohol attitudes of Australian kids. So I think it's a shocker. I hope that the company will back off. Another company, I don't think it was BAT, another company tried this in the UK on a university a few years ago, and they had to back off. And as I said, I hope that British American Tobacco get that message loud and clear that this is not the sort of information tobacco companies should be chasing.
So this information that they're trying to go after, I mean, what kind of information is it? It's a survey of school students. It's their views towards tobacco. Is that right?
Well, yeah, this is a survey that's done by an incredibly well-respected group that looks at all kinds of issues around smoking and drinking, and it includes information about what sort of packs, what sort of brands rather they prefer. It includes a range of information about their attitudes to smoking, about when they smoke, similar information about alcohol, and of course, this is a survey that's done through schools. The information's provided on a confidential basis, and it would be appalling if information provided by schools on a confidential basis were then provided to the tobacco companies, and who knows who after that.
If you've just joined us, I'm here with Professor Mike Daub. He's the president of the Australian Council on Smoking and Health. Mike, I'm thinking about this, and what has the trend been amongst young Australians when it comes to smoking over the last, say, 5-10 years? Is it on the decrease?
Oh, very much so, yes. Smoking is declining in Australia. It's declining in adults. It's declining in kids. The trends are very encouraging indeed. And a range of things contribute to that. Price, public education, restrictions on smoking in public places, and more recently, plain packaging has removed from tobacco companies pretty much the last means through which they can directly promote and glamorize their products. Now, the industry doesn't like that at all, of course. They're opposing that fiercely. And I think what we're seeing here is that they will go to pretty much any lengths in their efforts to undermine plain packaging legislation. So there are some things that it's legitimate for any companies to do, but using freedom of information legislation to access information about kids' attitudes to tobacco and alcohol, that's not legitimate, particularly when it's information collected on a confidential basis by a cancer charity.
Mike, as I understand it, you were instrumental in the plain packaging, the introduction of the plain packaging laws. See, a spokesperson today for BAT, British American Tobacco, has come out and defended these FOI applications, claiming that instead of Australian youth smoking rates going down because of plain packaging, they say they're going up. How do you respond to that?
That's baloney. What they've done is to use a sample to use a survey where even the people who ran the survey nationally, I think it was the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, said that the sample of kids in that survey was far too small to draw any conclusions. So that's baloney. But the difficulty with a group like British American Tobacco is that they will only speak about things they want to speak about, that you do not get access to them to ask them very simple questions like, why are you still in the business of selling and promoting a lethal product? Now, I'd love somebody to ask their spokespeople that question, because bottom line is, anything that they do that maintains or promotes sales of their products means more people will die prematurely. So nobody ever seems to ask them, do they sleep at night?
Well, it's a very good point. Just quickly, Mike, we are pushed for time, but Australia was the first country in the world to introduce plain packaging. I've seen that there has been talk of it in other countries. Globally, is there a push for plain packaging?
Oh, yeah, there's a terrific push towards it. The British and Irish governments have legislated for plain packaging. Of course, the industry is fighting that in the courts as they try to fight it here. Several other countries have said that they want to go down that route too. It's not a magic bullet. It won't solve all the world's problems, but it will make a major continuing contribution to reducing our largest preventable cause of death and disease.
Mike, as always, pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jamie.
That's Mike Daub there. He is a professor of health at Curtin University, and he's the president of the Australian Council on Smoking and Health. And he was one of the people the government went to when they were looking at putting in this plain packaging. He was instrumental in bringing it in, and he really, really does know his stuff. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How do you feel about large tobacco companies trying to get their hands on young Australians? These survey results which show how young Australians feel about smoking, how they feel about drinking, how much they smoke. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. The text line number here, 0437 034 663, 0437 034 663, or you can send us a tweet at 2SER. How do you feel about big tobacco companies fundamentally targeting young Australians? Now, I was mentioning before diets, be it the paleo diet or the 5-2 diet or the juice diet, but healthy eating, it's a fad at the moment. But is our obsession with healthy eating actually becoming unhealthy? Orthorexia nervosa is a relatively new and controversial term that's used to describe what can be seen as an unhealthy obsession. Many dietitians are blaming social media for brainwashing individuals into believing false nutritional information. Joining me on the line is Lauren McGuckin. She is a dietitian and spokesperson for Dietitians Association Australia. Hopefully she can shed some light on it. Good morning, Lauren. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Right, so let's put it in a box. Orthorexia nervosa is the obsession with healthy eating. Is that right?
That's correct. So it's not currently a recognised eating disorder under the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM-5, but it is fast becoming something very similar to one. So we describe it as a disordered eating pattern. But yes, it's an obsession, as you said, with healthy eating, and it actually does literally mean fixation on righteous eating.
Oh, righteous eating. There's nothing worse than a righteous warrior, is there?
That's right. It does become very, very obsessive, and somewhat of an obsession for people, and very consuming within their everyday lives. See,
Lauren, some people would say, being obsessed with healthy eating is probably, better than, being obsessed with eating McDonald's all day. I mean, some people playing devil's advocate might say, well, sure, that's a good thing. How do you respond to that?
You can go too far. There can be too much of a good thing as well, particularly when it starts to impact on, I suppose, your usual daily lives. It becomes, like I said before, all-consuming. It's all you think about. And you do become obsessive with it. And, when it starts to, drive your every thought and every reason for being, that's when it can become unhealthy.
And I take it that a lot of the driver of this will be your social media. Will be your people who are posting, day 5 of the juice cleanse detox, or, here I am with my paleo nut bar, or whatever it may be. Is social media playing a big part in the development of what is, I suppose, this disorder?
I would personally believe that social media is primarily to blame for the latest orthorexia boom. Orthorexia was actually coined by a medical director named Stephen Bratman back in 1996. But until recently, I hadn't even heard of it. Yes, exactly. I hadn't even heard of it until recently, and that's because of social media. So, I would definitely say that the boom in orthorexia is primarily due to social media, and to a lesser extent the internet and our accessibility of information. Yeah,
right. And I suppose, there are, it sounds evil, and it sounds kind of conspiratorial, but there are people who are peddling these diets, and they're tapping into that.
Definitely. So, your Fitspiration photos and food photos. I mean, there's various sources, and we're being bombarded with it. Everyone's got a Facebook account, a Twitter account, and it is such commonplace now to, have not just a personal account, but also one for these, obsessive food trends and, this Fitspiration movement as well, just showing off what you're eating and how perfect you can be. And there's this, I guess, push for people to want to follow suit, and, it becomes a little bit competitive in a sense.
Yeah, I suppose. If you just joined us, I'm speaking with Lauren McGuckin, spokesperson for Dietitians Association of Australia. Lauren, I mean, is there a deeper is there something going on deeper in someone's psyche, perhaps in their childhood, that's making them want to, eat perfectly and have the perfect body, or is it just the social media?
Well, that's where I think the fact that it's not actually a recognised eating disorder as yet, but it lends itself to becoming one, or it shares very similar traits to anorexia and bulimia, the key recognised eating disorders. So it's, I suppose it's not apparent as yet as how this, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. So we're talking here about the psyche of someone with orthorexia.
Yeah, so that it's, I mean, I guess it's not studied as yet as to, whether there are, diagnosable traits, and whether there is a link to family history or, what's happened in someone's past as to whether they'll develop orthorexia. But, if it does shift and become towards, become a classified or a recognised eating disorder, I guess we can sort of start making those links as we would with anorexia and bulimia. They can have, links back to a psychological aspect. It is a very heavily psychological aspect to disordered eating and eating disorders. So, yes, I think they're very much one and the same.
Yeah. Now, Lauren, if, you've got a friend or a colleague or something and you think, they're obsessed with healthy eating, and they might just go, I just, hashtag FitBod and, love my paleo diet. What are the characteristics of someone who has orthorexia nervosa?
So I think it would just be that, if they were your friend, for instance, you probably start seeing them a little less often. It's got a very negative impact on social and socialising. You'll quite often find that they become very opinionated about food, and might even start criticising what other people are eating.
I think the term is food wanker, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, food wankery. So they do become a little bit, high or mighty about what they're eating, and we'll start to judge others around them for what they're eating, or telling them that that's bad and that's good. So it can become very socially isolating, whether people are starting to push them away or they're actually starting to revert away from social circles because their, food principles don't match up. And it can be very, I guess, anxiety causing or anxiety driving for these people with orthorexia to actually eat around people that are eating what we see as normally, but that's not normal and not healthy enough for them. Severe anxiety in the individual around food, it's just, one of the forefront, signs of someone with anorexia, and avoidance of not just the foods, but like I said, and the social situations, but, of whole food groups. And that's such a common thing as well, is demonising and removing whole food groups because of the misinformation and, the advice of these unqualified individuals that they might be following or listening to.
Lauren, I do have the news coming up, but I'm thinking, like with anorexia or bulimia, if you've got a friend and you're concerned about them, how do you take that first step of going and speaking to them about it? Because it can often be a very, very confronting situation to go and talk to a friend about something like that. How do you do it?
Absolutely. I guess there's, never really a right or a wrong time. It is very difficult to approach somebody that you love if you're concerned about them. But, I suppose it's if you do love them and are truly concerned, the best thing to do is to speak up and, perhaps suggest that they go and see someone like an accredited practicing dietitian to actually speak about, your concerns, but also speak about, food and their relationship with food, and perhaps give them the real insight or some real evidence-based understanding about what is healthy and what's the right thing to eat, to make sure that they are leading as healthy lives as they possibly can.
Lauren, well, thank you so much for your time today and for your information.
Pleasure, thank you.
That's Lauren McGuckin there. She's a dietitian and spokesperson for Dietitians Association of Australia, talking to us about orthorexia nervosa, that an obsession with healthy eating. And you see it all over, particularly Facebook. You know, pictures of people hashtagging their food, and gosh, there's only so much quinoa you can get into a filtered shot on Instagram, really. Anyway, that is Lauren talking to us about this new, what could be a disorder, orthorexia.